Oh, wow, that was quick. Hey, Risky Boots, how's it going? We're, tracking ya. Guess we've found ya. We already did. You had a hell of a head start, and you had the horniness advantage, but oh, well. Dang. Looks like we're gonna have to take the long way around then. So, welcome to Dribble Fountain. So, the aqueducts here, our first labyrinth. Thankfully I had a guide to this. Not to say that, despite the name Labyrinth, it's too confusing. There are a few different ways you can go, and a few ways that are dead ends until you actually get certain keys or whatever have you. But nonetheless, I do like to move through these things quickly. So, Dribble Fountain is where we're going to start unlocking some abilities, which is good because, honestly, Shantae's jump and hair attacks on their own don't really give us much access to, well, most things, really. Now, this introduction part isn't too bad, none of the enemies are really all that difficult. That being said, I believe falling in the water is instant death, so don't do that. Would like to say, however, I know I mentioned it in the first episode, but God, the lighting is amazing! And again, it's not like it's a lighting engine. This is just really good sprite work. Oh, we have a mini-boss. It's this water lady. She's super easy. I think does she do a claw swipe or does she shoot you? I honestly don't know. She didn't really do anything, and then oddly enough, her spawning on top of me didn't hit me, which usually this game isn't that lenient, so I'm surprised I didn't get hit there. Ooh, that's a super big gem. So, that's one of the things I mentioned earlier. While it's better to grind, labyrinths are a good source of money the first time through because of those big gems you can collect. Again, dance parlor's probably the best, but, you know, this isn't a bad spot for money. And we got our first warp squid. Alright, so I'm going to talk about this now. There are actually 5 warp squids per dungeon. And the thing about warp squids is, you usually can't get all of them on your first go. Now, if you'll remember, both of the towns we've been in, you've needed 4 warp squids to give back to a mother squid. And, you know, you can probably see where this is headed. Each dungeon has enough warp squids to allow you to fast travel back to one town, and a spare warp squid. And eventually, we'll have enough warp squids from the spare warp squid in each dungeon that whatever town we choose as the final one to warp to, we can warp to it. I don't care for this because it's far too backtracky. Because not only will you have to backtrack to certain towns for a while, we've been to 2 and we'll only be able to fast travel to 1, you also have to backtrack 2 dungeons for a while. At least for like the first 2, maybe 3. So you have to have a pretty good set of abilities that I won't name just yet before you can actually get all the warp squids, and I think that's dumb and bad. That is probably where most of this game's playtime is, just from backtracking. It's one of the reasons I really don't care for this as a Metroidvania. Other than enemy placement, or I guess more specifically enemy spawning, the fact that there is so much backtracking is a bit of a pain. And not only that, like, either town is actually a worthy option for basically choosing as your first warp squid location, because I believe the town after this is actually, well, after this labyrinth we're going to want to go back to the left, but then after that we need to go back to the right. It kinda has you go back and forth if I'm remembering the order correctly. Meaning, Watertown's not a bad idea if you want to set that up so that in the future you don't have to travel as far. But also, Scuttletown's a good point to warp to because that has a minigame you can grind in. Anyway, though, I haven't talked that much about the dungeon itself. I've mostly been complaining about warp squids. It's pretty good. A few things here and there might catch you off guard, like these statues. They don't really like flinging fireballs until you actually start getting in some sort of aggro range, and I don't appreciate it. Like that one back there, that cheeky bastard that just would not fire until I started getting closer to his face. I don't appreciate that, weird statues. And that one's just a jerk. How dare he be positioned like that? These are fairly easy puzzles. Honestly, the biggest problem with these puzzles is the fact that you might accidentally whip like more than one little spinny thing at a time, which is of course a problem, but other than that it's just a fairly simple, I want to say memory puzzle, but it's not much of a puzzle also. Sweet trick, hell yeah! I'll just say right here, I definitely save stated after that. I was not losing this recording after having a fucking cool-ass stunt like that. Alright, so those enemies right there I haven't described yet. They like to guard a lot, so if they guard too much, basically just lay off them for a second and they'll make themselves vulnerable. Whenever they start doing that little pinching animation, they're about to charge at you, which isn't the worst thing to dodge, though I had trouble with certain formations in this dungeon. They basically get tougher when they're together, but we'll see that later. And, oh, that enemy just revealed a secret passage, but don't enter the secret passage just yet, otherwise he'll hit you. Either that, or, you know, you could just be always whipping until eventually you hear the sound of that weird thingamajigger's demise. And here we get a warp squid. Oh, thank goodness, we're completely invincible when we grab a warp squid. The fire just passes completely through Shantae. That's actually her genie power. She might only be a half-genie, but when she picks up a warp squid, oh boy, she is invulnerable. Anyway, I completely lost my train of thought. We're talking about the pinchy dudes. I guess I was finished talking about those dudes. Otherwise, like I said, I love the lighting here. I know I'm probably going to say that a lot, but this game is really technically impressive for a Game Boy Color game. It looks fantastic. Like, even by today's standards, obviously the sprite quality itself is a little bit oh, whoops. Well, we won't be able to solve that puzzle. Alright, well, I guess we'll just keep going on and hope that didn't completely screw us out of finishing this dungeon. Alright, so anyway, these platforms you just have to time yourself well. Don't rush it because they electrify. When in doubt, just assume they're about to attack or shock you or whatever have you. Also, I would like to note, I do love their defense animation. It's not really dignified, they just look like they're shouting, "Whoa man, whoa! No, none of that hair bullshit, no! I won't be having that!" And we get a key from this guy. Little unusual, might have... I have to complain a little bit about that. That's the first enemy we've gotten a key from, and he's kind of to a side room. Nothing really prompts you about a enemy having a key, but it's not a huge deal. I mean, to be fair, they drop money frequently, so in all likelihood you're gonna want to kill them. Anyway, there's stuff on the pillars back there, and you can actually use this little slab to reach them because they're just out of Shantae's jump height, and the slab will put you up at a high enough point to get on top of them. And yes, I did forget the word slab only moments after using it. Why do you ask? This segment's kind of There's no real danger here, and while I think this part's actually a kinda neat variation on the puzzle, I don't know, all the hair pushing you have to do is a little bit tedious, and you kinda get it, especially since nothing's really out-and-out dangerous here. That being said, I would like whatever's in here, because it is a gem, as I thought. To be fair, it could have been a big heart, and that wouldn't have been useful to me. So, now that we've repaired this weird spin-a-majig, we can get the key. Just make sure to memorize the combination we saw up on the top level, and you'll do this just fine. Like I said, it's a really simple puzzle. And again, I hesitate to even call it a puzzle, and man, the timing on that's lenient and not really in a way I care for, because you would think you wouldn't be able to stand on top of it, because I'm pretty sure I was standing on top of it when it still looked electrified, but whatever. If I didn't get hit, I'm fine with it, and I just think the timing could have been a little better on those weird, horrible worm things and the shocky platforms. And hey, how's it going? I mean, you didn't look that imprisoned. You look no more or less imprisoned than you were before. Alright, so, this is actually our first dance ability. And if you haven't tried out dancing before, don't worry, you don't have to memorize those specific moves, but yes, when you're dancing, depending on what direction you press, you do a different move. Down right is the move that allows you to transform into a monkey. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I've got a great memory. What were you doing again? Oh yeah, monkey transformation. Okay, so whenever that little beginning note lights up, you are able to input a new combination. Basically, once it loops back to the start of that little line, that's when you can press a new button. If you try to do a dance too quickly, it just won't. Alright, so we got another warp squid. Like I said, we could have gotten that before, but I didn't because we have to backtrack anyway. It's also worth noting, the monkey can jump high and climb walls, but it can't attack at the moment, so if you want to attack anything, you have to turn back into normal Shantae. That being said, though, it is really fun to use our first transformation. I think giving us a mobility-based transformation first and foremost is a good idea, because Shantae moves pretty well, but like, the monkey is a bit faster, jumps a bit higher, and is all around pretty fun to use. A little bit annoying that you have to de-transform to attack, but I guess they didn't want to just be a monkey forever. Either way, though, we do have to make frequent use of it, so I guess if we're transforming and de-transforming, it's probably a good thing that it's only a 2-button combination. Also, I'd just like to point out how good the monkey's running animation is. Look at that fucking monkey run! That animation is so fluid! Seriously, the sprite work and animation in this game are fantastic. I know I've been going on about the lighting, but the animation's good as well. Actually, technically the way they light, would that count as animation in this game? Since it's switching sprites? I mean, it's not really displaying motion, but it's displaying a change in location? Whatever. Look, I might write for a living, but like, I don't do words well, you know? Love writing, can't words. Such is the folly of humans. How do words well? I don't fucking know, but I want to do it professionally. Anyway, though, yeah, monkey transformation allows us to get to quite a few places. You might think that giving us the ability to climb walls right off the bat would be super broken, but, well, considering it's our first transformation, it's not. Now, it's useful, don't get me wrong. Useful, fun to use, but does not break the game. And we get our 4th warp squid. Like I said, we're going to need to get other transformations in order to get the final warp squid. I don't remember which ability is off the top of my head, but chances are I'm probably going to wait until I can access all of them before backtracking to get them, because it's not like 3 baby warp squids are going to be all that useful. Oh, and if I haven't mentioned it yet, basically dungeons are set up so you can get 4 warp squids normally. It's not going to make you backtrack to get a full set, but like I said, to get the 5th one, you need to come back with a new ability. Nothing worth it down there to my knowledge, so I skipped it, because I'm transforming and detransforming enough as is, and dang, apparently 2 of these guys is way too much. Like I said, 2 of these guys at the same time is actually pretty tricky, just because, if they're not syncing their attack or defense, like, oh my god. Actually, speaking of syncing, I almost got them to overlap, which, to be fair, doesn't really help your situation all that much, because, if they're out of sync in how they're attacking or defending, then it's a lot easier for them to hit you. Though honestly, even killing one of them, I actually had to do a few retakes here, because, I'm kind of bad at this game. Sometimes I just get hits. I shouldn't get hit, but I do. Okay, again, risky, like, you're trying to steal this thing, right? That looks like a thing that's stealable. You had a significant head start. I had to do a dungeon to get here. Have you not already pilfered this? Did you just stop to gloat? Actually, to be fair, she probably did. Okay, so, say hello to the first boss, in which it's actually so easy I had to hold back so he could actually attack. Of course, to be fair, he can hit you normally. Like, if you miss your attack, he can spin into you. Avoid that, but I eventually got the timing down well enough that I kind of just kept doing this, and this is the point at which I had to stop, otherwise I would have killed him, and he wouldn't have done, like, an actual attack. When he moves off screen, he's going to sweep the bottom. It's fairly easy to avoid since he's fairly slow, though I clearly expected him to come in later. When he drops to the bottom, which he usually does after his other attack, transform into a monkey, as the statues might suggest, because he's going to do that huge wave. Don't get hit by that, that one stings. Those are his only attacks, so let's finish him off. Yep, that was it. I had to purposefully not kill him. Otherwise, this would have been over far too quickly. We wouldn't want that now, would we? We wouldn't. And hell yeah! Pretty good spin right there. Well, it looks like Risky got a head start on owning Bolo, but to be fair, if I had to guess, he's probably into it. Yep. He seemed like the type. I mean, like I said, he's definitely into it. And Bolo was so owned, night passed and it was daytime. Oh, hey, cool. That's a one-of-a-kind item that has ultimate power. It's neat. It's pretty alright. Totally tubular, you could say. Wow. I mean, that's incredibly powerful, but no one would ever go thirsty if we actually, like, use this thing. And Risky just wants to use it to power an engine. Well, that's as good a point to start as any, so I guess we're gonna go to Oasis Town then. Okay, well, this is getting too weird for me, so I'm gonna leave now, Bolo. You maybe do your thing a little less. But even whether or not you do or don't do that thing, maybe do it elsewhere. Just in the middle of the forest where I won't find you. To be fair, even if Risky gets there first, she's probably just going to wait around for us, so I'm not too concerned. That being said, though, next time on Shantae, we're out of a labyrinth, so it's time yet again to venture out into the world. This time we're going leftwards. Fancy, right? I'll bet you weren't expecting that from Shantae. That's the power of a Metroidvania. Sometimes you just go left.